Welcome to Clear Enough, where we explore how to begin, be heard, and break free, even without knowing everything. I'm Drew, and I believe you don't need all the answers to start. You just need to be clear enough to take the next right step. Hey friends, welcome back to the Clear Enough podcast. Today we're going to wrestle with one of the trickiest, sneakiest, and honestly most exhausting experiences so many of us face: imposter syndrome. Now, if you've ever found yourself lying awake at night thinking, what if they find out I don't know what I'm doing? What if they realize I don't belong here? What if I'm just a loser in disguise? You're not alone. I've been there. I still go there more often than I'd like to admit. But here's what I've learned. Those whispers are lies, convincing, persuasive, and loud, but lies nonetheless. And today we're going to drag those whispers into the light and see what's actually true instead. So, if you've ever felt like an imposter at work, in your family, in your community, or even just in your own head, this episode is for you. Let's start with the most common whisper, at least for me. Everyone's about to find out what a loser you are. That's how imposter syndrome shows up in my life. Every time I step into a new project, every time I send an important email, every time I walk into a meeting where people expect me to lead, I hear that voice. Careful, Drew. This is the time they're going to figure it out. This is the day your cover gets blown. And the crazy thing is, it doesn't matter what I've accomplished. I could win an award, graduate law school with special distinction, be entrusted with leading my team, and my brain still whispers, sure, but today's the day they'll see you don't really belong here. That fear goes all the way back to my childhood. I was raised in a tough environment. My mom struggled with addiction, my dad passed away young, and later, when I moved in with my aunt and uncle, I was often told directly that I was a disappointment, sometimes yelled at in the car, trapped with nowhere to go. Those words stick. And so even as an adult, even as someone who's built a meaningful career and a beautiful family, the voice of imposter syndrome still sounds like that. You're about to be exposed. Everyone will know you're not good enough. But here's the truth instead. Credibility doesn't come from being flawless. It comes from being consistent, accountable, and real. People don't trust you because you never make a mistake. They trust you because when you do mess up, you own it. Because when you don't know something, you admit it. So where do these beliefs come from? For me, it's a mix of personal history and cultural conditioning. My family background. Like I said, being told as a teenager that I was a loser set the stage. Those words weren't just noise in the car. They became grooves in my brain. School, tests, grades, and constant evaluation teach us that there's a right answer for everything. Real life doesn't work like that, but we internalize the message anyway. Community expectations. In my church growing up, when I started dating my now wife, people literally told her not to date me, that I wasn't stable, that I wasn't going anywhere. Imagine being in love and hearing that half your community thinks you're destined to fail. That sticks. And professional culture, law, business, finance, all fields that love to reward certainty. But the truth is, no one can ever be 100% certain. So we learn to fake it until we make it, and sometimes the faking feels like lying. It's no wonder imposter syndrome feels like our default setting. It's like a software program running quietly in the background, draining battery life, even when we don't notice. But here's the counter truth. We are shaped by our experiences, but we're not sentenced by them. Your past may explain why you feel this way, but it doesn't define who you are now or who you can become. Now, here's something that might sound backwards at first. Imposter syndrome hits hardest for high achievers. Why? Because when you're wired to push for excellence, you also raise the bar on yourself. Constantly. You don't just want to reach the moon, you want the stars too. And when you reach the moon, instead of celebrating, you beat yourself up for falling short of the stars. I see this in myself all the time. If I set 7 goals and achieve 6, the one I missed looms larger than the 6 wins combined. And here's the truth. High achievers feel imposter syndrome because they are actually stretching themselves. They're aiming higher than feels comfortable. They're walking into rooms where they don't yet know all the answers. And that's exactly where growth requires. So if you're listening to this thinking, why do I always feel like the dumbest person in the room? Pause for a second and realize what that actually would mean. that you've put yourself in a room full of smart people. And that's not evidence you don't belong. That's evidence that you're growing. So what's the cost of believing these lies? For me, it looks like starting every project at -5. Other people, the confident ones, may start at 0. They only have to climb 10 steps to get to success. For me, it feels like I have to climb 15 because I first have to drag myself out of the hole of insecurity before I can even begin the real work. It's exhausting. It wastes time. I'll write an email and then spend 15 minutes rereading it, editing it, second-guessing every phrase until I finally hit send. And by then I've burned mental energy I could have used somewhere else. And it doesn't just cost me at work, it costs me at home. On those days when imposter syndrome runs the show, I come home with nothing left in the tank for my wife and kids. They deserve my best, but instead they get a shell of me, tired, drained, and checked out. That's the real cost of believing the lies. Lost energy, lost time, lost presence. But here's the truth instead. Your worth doesn't rise and fall with every project, every email, every win or loss. Your worth is inherent. The people who love you don't love you because you're flawless. They love you because you're you. Before we keep going, let me ask you to pause for just a second. Get out your journal, get out your notes app. Think about the last time you hesitated to share something, a project, an idea, even just an honest feeling, because you thought, it's not good enough. I'm not good enough. What opportunity did you miss because of that? And what would have been possible if you had shared it in any way? If you're listening right now and you want to make this practical, jot it down. Or if you're on social, share it with me. I'd love to hear your story. One of the best ways to fight imposter syndrome is with evidence. What's true instead? I graduated law school with special distinction in estate planning. That didn't happen by accident. I've built my career where people trust me to make meaningful decisions. That trust is earned. I'm raising 4 daughters, and while I'm far from perfect, I show up for them every single day. That matters. Even something as small as making a really great pancake. I know it's silly, but it's evidence. Golden brown on both sides, no skid marks from the spatula, just about perfect. That's something I can own. We all have evidence, accomplishments, relationships, moments where other people's trust in us says more than the voice of doubt ever could. The truth is this: you are not the sum of your insecurities. You are the sum of your consistent actions, your willingness to learn, and the love you bring into the world. Here's a reframe that changed everything for me. What if imposter syndrome isn't proof that you don't belong, but proof that you're growing? Think about it. You don't feel like an imposter when you're doing the stuff you've already mastered. You feel like an imposter when you step into new territory, when you take on responsibility you haven't carried before, when you speak up in a meeting for the first time, when you stretch into something that scares you. That's the sign of growth. It's your brain telling you, whoa, we've never done this before, so we're not sure we can. Of course it feels uncomfortable. Growth usually does. So the next time you feel that whisper, who do you think you are? Try flipping it around. Instead of letting it stop you, take it as a signal. I'm leveling up. I'm stepping into something bigger than I've ever done before. It won't erase the feelings overnight, but it gives you a way to use that whisper against itself. Imposter syndrome becomes less of a trap and more of a compass. Let me tell you a story from law school that stands out as one of the most painful but powerful lessons of my life. In my final semester, I had 2 capstone projects under the estate planning professor. Twice a week I'd meet with him. One day for one project, one day for the other. Each meeting I'd bring my work, and he'd spend an hour telling me everything I did wrong. Every gap, every mistake, every missed nuance. It was brutal. I had panic attacks before meetings. I'd call my wife in tears, convinced I was failing, convinced I wasn't cut out for this work. And then right at the end of the semester, with finals looming, my professor told me, "You've done enough to graduate, but not enough for the special distinction in estate planning." I was crushed. I had poured myself into those projects for months. He gave me 2 options: stop now, graduate without distinction, or keep coming back twice a day during finals week to push for it. So I kept going. I showed up every morning and every afternoon, and after days of this, he finally told me, "You've done it. You've earned the distinction." Here's the twist. When graduation came, I was shocked to hear my name announced as the only person in my class graduating with special distinction in any topic, and I had done it in estate planning. It turned out he'd already submitted my approval before that last week, before he told me I'd finally earned it. Why? I think he knew I wouldn't stop until I pushed through. He knew the process was part of the lesson. That little diploma, the smallest one on my wall, is still the one I'm most proud of, because I earned it not by being confident, but by showing up despite feeling like an imposter every single day. The truth instead, success doesn't require the absence of doubt. It requires persistence through doubt. Let's zoom out. Why does our culture reward confidence so much more visibly than credibility? Because confidence is flashy. It's exciting. Confident people can walk into a room, crack a joke about your favorite football team, and suddenly they have influence. They say what you already want to hear, and you feel good about siding with them. But here's the risk. Confidence without credibility doesn't last. Eventually cracks show, promises get broken, people stop listening. Credibility, on the other hand, is quieter. It's built through consistency, through humility, through honesty. It doesn't win the short-term popularity contest, but it builds trust that lasts. The truth instead, confidence may open the door, but credibility is what keeps you in the room. I'll share another story, this one about credibility. I once worked for a boss whose style clashed with mine. It wasn't a good fit, and eventually I knew I needed to move on. But here's the thing. Even while I was there, I worked hard, I showed up, I gave my best effort, even when it was difficult. So when I finally told him I was going to look for other opportunities, he didn't fire me on the spot, even though he could have. He let me stay. He trusted me to keep doing my job with integrity while I looked. That credibility gave me breathing room. I didn't have to take the first job that came along just to pay the bills. I could be selective. I could wait for the right opportunity. And because of that, I landed somewhere so much better, a place where I worked with people I respected doing work that I loved. Credibility opened that door, and it didn't come from being the smartest or most confident person in the room. It came from being reliable, consistent, and honest. So how do we actually build credibility? First, humility. Admit when you don't know something. Own your mistakes. People respect that far more than fake certainty. Second, reliability. Be consistent. Over time, a steady track record matters more than one big win. Third, preparation. Do your homework. Walk into the room ready to contribute, not just wing it. And fourth, resilience. Fail fast and move on. If you blow it once, learn from it. If you blow it 20 times and never adjust, that's when credibility erodes. You don't have to be perfect to be credible. You just have to be willing to keep learning, keep showing up, and keep doing the next right thing. Credibility isn't about never failing. It's about what you do after you fail. One of the most powerful things about sharing your imperfections, about admitting your struggles with imposter syndrome, is that it builds connection. A few months ago, I shared in church that I struggle with depression. I told the congregation how it often shows up as the fear that everyone's about to discover I'm a loser. Afterward, a woman told me that her husband leaned over to her during my talk and whispered, "Oh, we're allowed to talk about that?" This man had been carrying his own feelings of inadequacy for 75 years, and in that moment he realized he wasn't alone. He realized he could name it too. That's the power of honesty. That's the power of being willing to show your process, not just the polished product. So let's bring it all together. The lies of imposter syndrome say, everyone's about to find out you're a loser. You do not belong here. You're not good enough. But here's what's true instead. You belong precisely because you're willing to keep showing up. You're not defined by your fears. You're defined by your actions. You don't need to see 20 steps ahead. You just need to take the next right step. As we wrap up, I want to invite you into a practice. The next time you hear that whisper, that you're not enough, that you're about to be exposed, pause and ask yourself, what's true instead? Write it down, even if it feels small, even if it feels silly, like I make a mean pancake. Evidence matters, and the more you gather, the stronger your case against the lies becomes. Imposter syndrome doesn't disappear overnight, but it doesn't have to ruin your life either. The lies may keep whispering, but the truth is louder if you let yourself hear it. So remember this: you don't have to be perfect to take action. You just have to be clear enough to take the next step. Thanks for joining me today. I can't wait to keep this conversation going, because none of us have to figure this out alone. Thanks for listening to Clear Enough. If today's episode connected with you, share it with a friend or leave a review. And remember, you don't need to know everything. You just need to be clear enough to take the next right step.